What's up everyone, I'm Twisted. With the Spirit Blossom team being back, this time as the focus of a whole season, there are a lot of videos I plan on making about it. But before any other video, I really need to make this one. You see, ever since the Spirit Blossom skin line was first introduced in 2020, people have been discussing how canon it is. Riot did put out an article that year explaining just that, but we all know League players can't read. People who say that Spirit Blossom is canon either don't fully understand it, for example they might say that the skins are based on real spirits from Ionia, which is not entirely accurate, or they might just have a different definition of what canon is. The latter being, in my opinion, the biggest culprit of this whole discussion. So, today I'll be going over what my definition of canon is and how the Spirit Blossom skins don't fall under it. Now, I'm not making this video to be the lore police. Everything I'll mention here comes from articles that Riot put out, my own interpretation of the skins, and what being canon means to me. I'm just making this video because I'm really tired of explaining this over and over. In fiction, something being canon usually means that 1. It was created by the people who are the original authors, or with their permission, or for the main company that owns the IP or whatever, basically not made by fans. And 2. Within all the official stories and experiences, the canon ones are part of the main continuity, not an alternate timeline or a what-if scenario. In the context of League of Legends, this can be hard to follow as the lore is usually explored in many different ways with different levels of canonicity, not to mention the numerous retcons and updates. But overall to me, something being canon means it exists or existed within the main world of Runeterra. Now, does Spirit Blossom fall under this definition? Well, the Spirit Blossom itself is a festival that does exist in Runeterra. It happens when the Spirit Blossom flowers bloom, and through them the Ionians can commune with their deceased loved ones, celebrating their passing to the afterlife or mourning their inability to rest. So, the festival itself, yep, 100% canon. But that's just the festival. What about the skins? Well, in Ionia, just like in all of Runeterra, there are many myths and legends, tales and stories passed down through generations. Just like in the real world, some of these even have multiple versions, the consequence of the stories being passed down via oral traditions. This means that the stories themselves are never accurate, but that doesn't mean they are completely fake either. In fact, one of the main themes of the first Spirit Blossom event was that despite myths being just stories, there's always a seed of truth in them. The skins themselves are based on these myths, stories of spirits, their tragic fates, and their journey to the afterlife. So, the champions themselves are canon. Like, of course. The myths are also canon, as in these are stories that do exist in Ionian folklore, tales and legends that the Ionians believe in. The characters from the stories might or not be real. With one exception I'll mention in a bit, we don't know if any of the spirits from the skins actually exist, or if they are just fiction within fiction. This is the part that a lot of people get wrong about Spirit Blossom. This is just folklore, but I do understand the confusion since spirits do exist in Runeterra, as well as the Spirit Realm, which is where all the stories of the Spirit Blossom skins take place. With this being said, the skins themselves are not canon, because each of them is just one representation of one version of an Ionian myth. Basically, what if this champion was a spirit from Ionian folklore? I hope now everything makes a bit more sense as to why I say the skins aren't canon and why people keep telling me they are. It really just depends on what you mean by canon. When people say that the skins are canon, what they mean is that the stories the skins are based on exist in the canon world. And well, as I said, some of them also think that these are stories about real spirits, which again we don't really know if that's true. Yes, I know that I'm arguing semantics to an extent here, but I hope we are all on the same page now. Spirit Blossom can be confusing because it's a very unique case within the lore of Runeterra. The only similar example I can think of are the Chosen of the Wolf skins. With the exception of Mbessa and Kindred, the skins represent warriors from the past that were allowed to enter Volraknun. These warriors were mentioned in Mbessa's novel. Katarina and the rest aren't these warriors. Their skins are simply based on them. And similarly to Spirit Blossom, we don't know how real they are. This is a vision given to Mbessa by Kindred, and the only perspective we get is from Mbessa. So while I personally believe that the warriors did exist and that Volraknun is indeed real, that can still be left to interpretation. Alright, with all of this being said, there are still two Spirit Blossom champions I want to talk about. First, Kindred. Spirit Blossom Kindred is a unique case amongst the Spirit Blossom skins, because the skin itself is based on the myth of the Taker, and the Taker is just one interpretation of the legend of the Kindred. So, is this what the duo look like in Ionia? Well, not exactly. We as the audience know what the Kindred look like, but in universe, people only see them when near death, so it's not surprising that the Ionian myth isn't exactly accurate. It's just a story after all. With this being said, Kindred is a spirit, and spirits are shaped by people's perceptions and beliefs. That's why Volibear can look like a monster when summoned by the Ursine. So it's possible that if some Ionians really believe that Kindred is a little girl and a wolf, that's how they might manifest to them when they die. But since that's yet to happen in the lore, all we can do is assume that the skin is just like the other ones and not actually canon. Again, the Ionian myth exists in the universe, but the myth is just that, a story. And in this case, we as the audience know that there is some truth to it, as Kindred do exist, they just aren't a little girl and a wolf. I really wish Riot would make more Spirit Blossom skins like Kindred's, as in Ionian interpretations of known myths. And I really want to make a video about this topic, so let me know down below if that's something you'd like to see. Now, to end this video, let's talk about Yone. The Spirit Blossom Yone skin and its story confuses a lot of people, and it's understandable as to why. But in case you don't know, here's some context. Yone came out during the first Spirit Blossom event. In fact, he and Lilia were developed alongside the event itself. One of the versions of the Ionian story of the two brothers is very similar to the story of Yone, and here is where the confusion begins. What do we see happening to Spirit Blossom Yone in the Path cinematic? It's almost the same exact thing that happened to the canon version of Yone. And at the end of the cinematic, we transition from one Yone to another. The description of the cinematic saying that every myth carries a seed of truth. So it's no surprise that a lot of people assume that Yone was the elder brother from the story, or that at least a legend was inspired by him. However, and this is just my perspective, this doesn't make that much sense because Yone isn't that old. Sure, there are modern legends in Runeterra, Pike is a good example, but we don't really know how well known Yasuo's and Yone's story is in Ionia. In their own village, everyone knows about them, but the rest of Ionia, we don't know. I think when Riot developed both Yone and Spirit Blossom Yone, the idea might have been to leave it up in the air whether or not the former inspired the latter. Either that, or this is just one of those tropes in media where a character follows a path very similar to that of another character from a legend or from the past. I think that's also very possible. If you believe that this myth was indeed inspired by Yone, and by extension Yasuo, that's fine, it's a cool theory. Personally, I lean more toward the history repeating itself trope, but honestly, both could be true. And finally, I just wanna say that from all the myths the skins are based on, only these ones were ever explored in the lore. All of them in a story perennial, which was teasing the Spirit Blossom event. Which is very sad because what's the point of creating myths and legends for a region when we don't know how these affect people, why they believe in them, what they represent? Why should I care that the Ionians have a spirit of war when all the lore we have about it are 3 sentences? Spirit Blossom creating brand new myths instead of using known ones and not exploring them properly are the 2 most disappointing aspects of the skin line in my opinion. But hey, maybe this next batch will fix that, we'll see. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you like this type of videos, consider subscribing, it's free and you can always change your mind later. I'm trying to reach 5k subs this year, so your help would be very much appreciated. I'm Twisted and I'll see you guys in the next video.